guys, happy Monday, and we are going to get started right away. Got a long lesson. We're going to start talking about the Pythagorean theorem part 2. Okay, so if you saw the video and did the quiz on Thursday last week, you already started part 1. If you didn't, I highly recommend you go back to that. Watch the video and also then take the quiz, and you can do that at any time. Even though the time says it's up, you can still take quizzes. By the way, the people that did take the quiz, you guys did a really good job. Almost everybody seemed to really understand it, so I appreciate that. I'm still learning all this. Okay, so here we go. Just a very quick review. Pythagorean theorem works on a right triangle, so it has a 90 degree. This is called a leg, this is called a leg, and always across from the right angle is the hypotenuse. We're going to use this a squared plus b squared equals c squared. The right, always across from the right angle, the hypotenuse is always called c in the formula. Doesn't matter if you switch these up, this does matter. Also, remember from our lesson on Thursday, the hypotenuse always has the largest measurement. So this will always be your biggest number. All right, so let's get started. This quick review on Thursday. If you didn't do it, go back. If you don't understand what we're doing today, go back. Be taking notes, pause when you need to, rewind when you need to. Okay, so I have a right triangle, and across from the right angle is the hypotenuse, which we're going to call c. I'm going to use a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Well, I'm going to label this a and this b. It wouldn't have mattered if I would have flipped those. All that matters is what the c is. So right now I'm going to say 4 squared, plug in the 3 where the b is. Now I know 4 squared means 4 times 4, which is 16. 3 squared means 3 times 3, which is 9. I'm going to add those up, and 16 plus 9 is 25, equals c squared. But this isn't the answer. I need to get the square root of 25. Remember, I knew the a before it was squared. I knew that it was 4, then it became 16. I knew the b before it was squared, so I want to know the c before it was squared, so I get the square root. So I'm thinking, what times what gives me 25, where the numbers are the same, and that's 5. So my answer is 5. And let's see if this works, because the hypotenuse always has to be the largest measurement. Yes, 5 is bigger than 4 or 3, so we're good. Now I'd like you to pause the video, and do these two, and then I'll see you back here. Okay, hopefully you took advantage of pausing, and you have already written this out, and you've got a squared plus b squared equals c squared. You've got 9 squared here, 12 squared here, and we don't know c. 9 squared is 81, 12 squared is 144, and when I add these two up, I get 5, 12, 225. And then if you used your calculator, you probably found out very quickly that the square root of 225 is 15. So I know that my hypotenuse is 15, and yes, it follows suit in the fact that it's my largest measurement. Here, I have, I'm writing my formula again, it always helps. 15 squared, 20 squared, 15 squared, hey, we just did it right here. The square root of 225 is 15, so 15 squared is 225. 20 times 20 is 400. Add these up. I get 625. Get the square root. What times what gives me 625? And the answer is 25. So I kind of ran out of room. I wrote here. That would be 25. Now, those two you're supposed to do on your own. If you had trouble, rewind or go back and watch Thursday's video. Now, this was one of the assignments on Thursday's video. pretty much everybody got it right, but my point with this is to show you that, by the way, this drawing wasn't there. This is my second take, and so I had to draw that. This is the way it's going to look on the GED. It's going to be words. It's not going to be something like this. This is just for us to kind of get started. It's just going to be this, and you have to read and go from there. So there's a flagpole that is 8 feet tall. So the first thing I'm going to do is draw my flagpole. Okay? 8 feet. Now there's a guide wire that goes from the top of the pole to the ground to keep it secure. Well, we know guide wires look like this. They go at an angle, and this is where it attaches in the ground. Now, the guide wire is buried in the ground 6 feet away from the pole. So from here to here is 6 feet. By drawing that, I now see I have a right triangle and I am missing my hypotenuse. So I go back and I do my a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So 8 squared plus 6 squared equals c squared. 8 squared means 8 times 8, which is 64. 6 means 6 times 6, which is 36. Add that up. The square root of 100, what times what gives me 100 where the numbers are the same, is 10. So once again, this was a review. This was on Thursday's quiz. I just wanted to go through it, just show you draw as you go. Now, what about when numbers aren't pretty? Well, number one, it's a little tricky because I don't know what calculators you guys have at home, and I know you need calculators for this. And hoping that you find something you can use. I don't even have the ones that we've been using in school. I have this one. But it still has a square root key. You got to find something that has a square root key to do this. All right, so what about when numbers aren't pretty, like this one? This one, both sides are 4. We're missing the hypotenuse. So I'm going to be writing a squared plus b squared equals c squared. I got an idea. You guys pause and try it, and I'll see you back here in a second. Okay, so 4 would go here, 4 would go here. Well, I know 4 squares, 4 times 4, which is 16. This is the same, so it's going to be the same. Add these two up. I know I need the square root of 32. Well, wait a minute. There is no perfect square. In other words, a certain number times a certain number where the numbers are the same. I'm never going to get to 32. But I am going to find out when I put it in my calculator. That is 5.656. Now, usually the GED will say round to the nearest whole number or the nearest tenth or the nearest hundredth. Today we're going to round everything to the nearest tenth. So the tenth is the first place after the decimal. That means I draw my line here. The 5 tells me what to do with the 6. The 5 says, since remember the rule, if it's 0 through 4, leave the number alone. If it's 5 through 9, bump it up. So the 5 says bump this up to a 7. So my answer ends up being 5.7. I know this was a really quick rounding lesson. If you do not know how to round, that is all in Aztec, and you can find that and go from there. So sometimes you're going to not get pretty numbers, and this is what it would look like. That's my answer. All right. Here's a word problem. A ramp was built to add wheelchair access to a public building. The ramp rises 2 feet, so from here to here is 2 feet. Round to the nearest tenth to find out how long the ramp is. I'm going to give you a minute, give it a shot. I'll see you back here. All right, so we're going to say a squared plus b squared equals c squared. This is my right angle. Across from there is my c, so that's what I'm missing. So I'm going to put 10 squared here and 2 squared here. Like I always say, it doesn't matter if you mix these two up, as long as you don't mix c up. So 10 squared is 100. 2 squared is 2 times 2, which is 4. Add that up, I get 104. Square root of 104. Well, it's not going to be pretty. it comes out as 10.198. So once again, let's round to the nearest tenth. Draw my line here. Then 9 says bump that 1 up, so it becomes a 2. And my final answer, my hypotenuse is 10.2. Okay, if you need to pause, rethink about it, that's the beauty of videotaping. All right, now take that same situation, the same ramp. The owner is remodeling the front of the property, and they would like to modify the ramp so it begins 12 feet from the building. So instead of this 10 feet, it's now going to go 12 feet. What will be the length of the new ramp? Round to the nearest tenth. So you try it. I'm going to just leave this here for you to look at, and I'll see you in a minute. Okay, so what we have is now this is going to be 12. This will still remain 2. The question is, how long is the ramp? So once again, I've got my a squared plus b squared equals c squared. I am missing my c, my hypotenuse. So I'm going to say 12 squared plus 2 squared equals, we don't know yet. 12 squared is 144. 2 squared is 4. So when I add these two up, I get 148. I get the square root. Well, the square root of 148 is 12.165. And we are going to round that to the nearest tenth. So I'm going to draw my line. The 6 says bump that 1 up. So when I do, I get 12.2. So there's my answer. Hopefully you did good on that one. If not, pause, look at it, think about it. Now here we go. We have all along been needing to find the hypotenuse. What if I know the hypotenuse and I need to find one of the other leg measurements? That's going to happen here. So let's see what I know. I know a squared plus b squared equals c squared. I know always across from the right angle is what I call my c. So I'm ready to fill in. I don't know a, so it's going to stay like this. B is 4 squared. And c is 5 squared. Sorry, I need a drink. So 4 squared is 16. I don't know a at the moment, and I know that 5 squared is 25. Okay, this is where it's different, so everybody pay attention to this. This is totally different than what we've been doing. Before, I always knew a and b and didn't know c. Now I know c. I've got to get a alone, so I'm going to draw my wall, just like we used to do in school. I need to get a alone, so I need to get rid of this 16. So to get rid of the 16, I do the opposite. It's a positive 16, so I subtract 16. If I subtract 16 from this side, I've got to do it from that side. This goes away. 25 minus 16 is 9. Now I need to get the square root of 9. What times what gives me 9 where the numbers are the same? 3. This step right here, though, guys, that's the new step. If you hadn't had me before and didn't know that. Okay, here, let's try this one. I want you to press pause. I give you big numbers, but you can handle it. I'll see you back here in a minute. All right, so across from the right angle is C, so that goes here. Apparently, I don't know my B, and this must be A. Well, 30 squared is 30 times 30. And I don't know my B, so that's going to stay the way it is. And then, so I leave that there. And then I've got to figure out what 50 times 50 is. And that's going to be 2,500. Sorry, I was getting a call. Okay, So now, once again, I need to get b alone. So to get b alone, I got to get rid of this 900. So hopefully when you did this problem, you subtracted the 900 from this side and from this side. And when you do, you get b squared. 2,500 minus 900 gives me 1,600. And then I have to get the square root. Now you may have used the calculator, which is perfectly fine, but you could also just say, what's the square root of 16? What times what gives me 16? Well, that's 4, and then just add a 0. 40 times 40 gives me 1,600. So let's double check that my hypotenuse is still my greatest measurement, and yes it is. So we're in business. Alright, next, I've got 2 more for you to do where you know the hypotenuse and you've got to find a missing side. Okay, so pause and I'll see you back here in a minute. Alright, so you're back. I hope you paused. I hope you tried it out. I hope when you did this, you realized that this is C, my hypotenuse. And it doesn't matter where I put 6. I could put it here. I could have put it here. I'll still get the same answer. So 10 squared is 100. B squared I don't know. 6 squared is 36. Remember, when I know the hypotenuse, I'm going to have to bring over one of the legs, subtract it. So I get rid of that. I have b squared. When I do my math, I get 64. Because of the square root, I need to get the square root. I'm sorry. It's late. I think I'm saying all the wrong term. Okay, forgive me. I get 8. So this is 8. Let's try another one. So once again, here's my right angle. That makes my C 20. So when I'm filling in, C is 20, B is 12, and I'm going to say I don't know that. So 12 squared is 12 times 12, which is 144. 20 squared is 20 times 20, which is 400. I need to get A alone, so I'm going to subtract 144 here, and I'm going to subtract 144 here. This goes away. So now I'm ready, and I'm going to get 6, I'm going to get 5, and I'm going to get 1. So I have 156, and I have A squared equals. I put 256. This is not my night. Okay, so I get 256, and so I put it in my calculator, and I say what times what gives me 256, and the answer is 16. Okay, so if you struggled with any of these, go back and re-look at them. Alrighty. I am the one struggling. I don't know what's wrong with me. We're almost done, guys. Okay, so what if the numbers aren't pretty? Once again, you're going to need a good calculator. Can't do all of these if you don't have perfect squares. These would be hard to do without a calculator. And this is another example of not a perfect square. So the first thing I'm going to do is write my a squared plus b squared equals c squared. I know that across from the right angle is my hypotenuse, so today on this question I know my c, so I'm going to put that here. This is going to be here, and apparently I don't know b. So 5 squared is 25. 11 squared is 121. I need to get b alone, so I got to subtract 25 from here, and I have to subtract 25 from there. So hopefully you're okay with that. And now when I subtract, get rid of this, I get 96, and then I need to get the square root of 96. So I get 9.797. and I need you to round this to the nearest tenth. So I draw my line here. The 9 says bump that up. I think every single one that we did today I had to bump up. So I get 9.8. So this leg is 9.8. Okay, one last one for you. Here we go. Okay, so this one, give it a shot, and I'll see you back here in a minute. It says if the length of the walkway is 40 yards and the width of the garden is 12 yards, what is the approximate length of the garden? Round to the nearest tenth. Draw it, fill in what you know. Do you know the A? Do you know the B? Do you know the C? And then do the work. I'll see you back here in a minute. Okay, so the first thing I would have been doing if I would have had this question on my paper is I would have drawn this. Now let's see what I know. If the length of the walkway is 40 yards, so this is 40 yards right here. And the width, okay, I'm going to say the width is here, is 12. What is the approximate length? Okay, right away I know that across from the right angle is the walkway. So that means I did not know the C. So when I write my A squared plus B squared equals C squared, I said that so wrong. I'm so mad at myself. Sorry about that, guys. I do know the C. Back up. I'm so sorry. Across from the right angle is my hypotenuse, which is the C. So I do know the C. The C is 40 yards. I had too much Easter candy today. I am just all over the place. So that goes here. We're going to put the 12 here. And I don't know what the A is at the moment. Okay. So hopefully I didn't confuse you on that. Rewind. Listen to my oopsies. 12 squared is 144. 40 squared is 40 times 40, which is 1600. Now I need to subtract because I need A alone, so I got to get rid of this 144. I got to get rid of this 144. Subtract. I get 1,456 A squared. No, there is not a perfect square for this. So I've got to use my calculator, find out what the square root of 1,456 is. I've got an answer bank over here too, if that helps. So when I do it, I get 38.15 in the calculator. Now we're rounding to the nearest tenth, so I'm going to draw the line here. The 5 says bump that 1 up. That's a 2, an 8, and a 3. So I find out that the missing measurement of the leg is 38.2. Okay, so please forgive me for my several oopsies. It is like 11:30 and at night, and I'm trying to get this ready so it'll be ready for you tomorrow morning. I can't wait for a new week with you guys. We are going to do Pythagorean theorem today. We're going to do some reviewing on some geometry terms, circumference, area of a circle, a few days this week, and then we're going to go and do some other things for a little bit of variety. So hang tight, keep studying this week. Don't forget there is a quiz over in assignments. I will see you back here tomorrow.